Welcome to the Whiskey Chasers, where we talk about our passion for whiskey and its history, either amongst ourselves or while interviewing distilleries, all while enjoying a glass. I'm Steve.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Chris.
Please enjoy responsibly while enjoying this week's episode of the Whiskey Chasers. Welcome to the Whiskey Chasers. So we are here with the Four Branches with Mike Trott and Harold Underdown, a couple of the founders there.
Welcome.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Guys, we're doing well. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So you guys are military folks. The Four Branches, that's what this is all about. The Four Branches of the military. The Four Branches represented by you guys. How did you guys get started?
We always kind of joke and say it was Tinder, but military Tinder. No, the 50,000 foot level, if you will, and it is important because it's the genesis of our story. But Rick Franco, who's not on with us, he was the Marine in this group, and Rick and I have gone back quite a ways. We crossed at the agency. I was Air Force and CIA. Rick was Marine Corps and CIA, and we crossed about the same time I was leaving the CIA, going private sector, when Rick was going pretty deep into what they were doing, and Rick ended up recruiting his VMI classmate, Virginia Military Institute. He recruited his classmate. They went from the VMI to the Marine Corps together, about 10 years as officers. And when Rick went into the agency, he recruited Greg into shortly after him. We go through about 4 or 5 months of training for what this particular group does, and I wore the same hat with that group. And but I was an employee. Rick was a contractor, one of the lead contractors, actually. And after about 4 or 5 months of training, Greg Wright Jr. Was his buddy, and he went out on a mission. There's usually about 2 to 3 months deployment into high threat areas. And Greg's first mission out, I think actually was the first night in country, they got involved in a situation that probably shouldn't have occurred. It's just the circumstances of that environment. And Greg did what a Marine would do. He stepped up and saved everybody's life, but he lost his. And Rick had to go, unfortunately, get him and bring him back and repatriate him back home. So as you can imagine, if it's your good buddy, somebody you've been through school with, it has a burn, right? It stays with you for a long time. And Rick called me up one day, and this is about 5 years ago, I guess now. He says, "Hey, really feeling like we should do something in memory of guys like Greg in honor of those." So it really kind of started out as an honor barrel. And you mentioned Four Branches Distillery. We're not a distillery. We contract with Bardstown Bourbon Company to make all of our stuff. We blend with them and make new stuff and work with their team. But when Rick called me and said he wanted to do this, it struck a chord with me as well. One of the very first casualties in Afghanistan after 9/11, his name is Johnny Mike Spann. Probably looked that one up, and probably should be a name we all kind of remember, just because he was the first one. He's known as the first casualty after 9/11 of November of that year. And I had the unfortunate honor to bring him home, to help bring him home. And so I got it, understood exactly what Rick was saying. So we were like, okay, how do we do this? And we got to just talking about it. And ironically, he's a Marine Corps. I was in Air Force. And we both had served alongside with Harold in some different environments. And as we kind of joke, we poured the same sand out of our shoes. Harold knows what that means. And we called up Harold and said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking." And it was about a 15-second conversation because Harold's like, "I'm in. How do we do this?" And he gets it, as a 30-plus year Navy SEAL, he's had to, bring back those flag-draped coffins as well. So that's what kind of brings it together. That's what started it. And then we were kind of joking one day. We got the Navy, we got the Army, we got the Air Force. We got the Marines, the Air Force, and the Navy. We just need an Army guy, kind of jokingly. And then we have a mutual friend who turned us on to RJ, and we had a call with him. At that time, he was filming a movie, and he was filming Extraction 2 in Prague. And we all jumped on a call with him. And RJ's a former 20-year Green Beret, and now he works with the Air Force Special Operations. But same thing, it's 30-second phone call. RJ's like, "How do we do this?" And none of us knew how. We know about bourbon, we know how it's made, and those kinds of things. But as far as building a company in a very crowded space, we needed to reach out and find the experts in this space. So that's kind of the background of how we got started.
So why bourbon? What drew you into that as the the thing to help honor those that you served with, to remember them?
I'll let Harold jump on that, but just, I think real quick, when you look at bourbon, bourbon is a reflective spirit. You really kind of take a step back. It's hard to do that with gin. It's hard to do it with vodka. To me, bourbon, you just kind of sit and slow down a little bit, and it's such a great American product. It's been around as long as the American military has. But anyway, I'll let Harold jump in there and kind of talk about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe bourbon we ran into it, right? We ran into the bourbon, by being a younger, before I was in the military. I remember back in high school, I had a bad encounter with brown, whiskey. And I couldn't smell it for years. So as I got older, I met Rick, of course, down in the Bahamas, down at Baker's Bay, and we were drinking scotch. And we kind of migrated over to bourbon. And as was having our cigars on our Friday evenings, sitting on the pier, looking at the water and the sunset, we were really, migrating over to bourbon. And just like Mike said, it really is, bourbon is a reflective spirit. You can get a little bit crazy with it if you want and try to drink it into the bottle. And we'll talk about this later on, but our ethos is we don't want to drink to forget. We want to sip to remember. So that helps out with, slowing everything down, sipping it instead of trying to chug it, and really enjoy the process that it took to get that bourbon into the bottle and into the glass, and be able to really understand the tasting notes of it, the age of it, the color of it. All of that we've been doing it for what, Mike, 3.5 years now. And we're working with some great people that are subject matter experts that we have in our dugout. And they've really taught us a lot about the process of making bourbon, plus, what makes it taste so unique, the age in the barrel itself, and how those flavors come about as it sets and inside that charred oak barrel. But I think that's the answer from my view. I think we kind of ran into it as we age. We kind of dabble around with whether it's beer, wine, vodka, spirits. But, for me, it was early on, I couldn't smell it because I'd get sick. As I aged out through that, as I matured, I really understood the setting down, having a cigar, whether it's scotch or bourbon, and really just enjoying the moment and sharing stories. So,
Yeah, we often say we can never have a gin podcast. Like, there's just not enough to talk about. So you're right. The whiskey, scotches, bourbons, all that, they are a story bourbon, a story drink. And so it is something to sit and talk about, and the memories it produces, hopefully good ones.
Anytime you get a chance to slow down too, right? Like, life's fast enough as it is, especially in certain jobs like the military, things like that. You're so used to go, that anytime you get a chance to sit down and kind of slow down, you appreciate it.
You do. And I think it's also the senses, right? Harold can agree with this. When you're in a different environment, whether it's overseas or a high threat area, I lived in the UAE for a couple of years, and all of your senses are firing. Your sight, your smell, your nose, your touch. You're always, you're just alive. There's a lot going on in your head. And bourbon to me has that because, like Harold said, you look at that brown color, and you'll just kind of watch that as it turns in your glass. And then if I'm sipping, I will always take a nose. I will always get my nose into it. You're not getting that much out of gin per se, or vodka necessarily. And when you start really studying how to make bourbon and all the different nuances to it, we love doing this. We love making the bourbon. We spend a lot of time at the in the chem room at Bardstown, doing a lot of samples. I got a ton of samples on my shelf here, and just exploring with it, and then working with guys like Steve Nally, Bourbon Hall of Fame, and Greg Snyder now is our master distiller. I mean, he's been doing this for 47 years. Geez, that's a long time to sit down with a guy and go, hey, what makes a good bourbon great, or what makes a bad bourbon, because we want to stay away from that. But I just think when you look at bourbon, you asked that question earlier, all your senses are going. Your eyes are going, your nose is going, your taste is going. And when all of that happens, it automatically flips a memory switch. You know, I can remember the last sip I had. My son and I, we were in Washington, D.C. I was heading to UAE, to Abu Dhabi for a couple of years. The same night my son was home on leave from Iraq, and he was going back the next day, flying back. And I can remember sitting in a restaurant in D.C., and when I take a sip or a smell of this, I remember that moment. That was pretty critical for me to, to send your son back in the harm's way, and hope he comes home. So those are there's a lot that goes on in bourbon that people don't realize.
Absolutely, it is it's a thinking spirit, and like you said, there are stories with every glass, and that story is different for every person. It's usually tied to an event like that. Trying to figure out, how to share that with someone, and then sharing that glass with a friend, they get a chance to really experience that same moment with you, which is always good.
There's something that you said, Mike, that being in the kiln room and going through several samples and trying to create this, and being able to be surrounded by Hall of Famers, those that have been in the distilling game for a long time. We've been blessed with the opportunities to interview a lot of distilleries in person. And there's something special that happens when you get a group of people that appreciate not just the whiskey, but what it takes to create that. And I can only imagine what those moments, those days, those hours were like there at Bardstown, really diving in with them and them seeing your passion, what you guys want to create, why you want to create it, but also them watching you guys all over what they can do and what they've done. I can only imagine how much fun those moments were with those people and how much they just kept giving samples out to you guys. But like, hey, I know you like this. You'll appreciate this. Try this. Try that. I can only imagine how much fun that was.
It was a lot of fun. Harold's got a pretty funny story about that, actually. I'll let Harold tell that story because it still makes me laugh. But I'll say one thing. When we were there, we were working with Dan Calloway and Justin Willett and some guys there working on our blend. And we had some ideas and we wanted to get their expertise. But they said, hey, Steve Nally is going to walk in and just say hi. He's the master. And he's been around a while, but he doesn't really stay in and work per se with guys like this or creating the new juice, if you will. And we're like, cool. So he came in behind us and we were doing what four guys would do from four different branches of the military, right? We're kind of kicking each other in the nuts and, just kind of chipping away at what manhood we have or whatever branch of the service we're in. And, you got somebody like Harold comes in as a 30-plus year Navy SEAL. He's going to be, thumping on my head all the time as the Air Force guy. But Steve came in behind us and he goes, we turned around, we introduced ourselves, and he goes, what's y'all's story? What, to your point, what's the old saying is that bourbon without a story is just brown water. And I think Steve brought that conversation, right? And he comes in almost like a grandfather or father. And he's like, what's y'all's story? So we tell him our story. And he kind of rolled his sleeves up a little bit and he goes, let's make some bourbon. And we were like, holy cow, really? We're going to sit here with a master? It's like having Picasso coming in showing you how to paint. But then we had a little funny event. I'll let Harold tell that one.
Yeah, we was all we was working with Dan, and Dan was putting in all these little tiny droplets, right? It looked like a chemistry lab, and it is. And he was doing this, and he had a little thimble, little tiny thing, and he was mixing everything up. And Steve goes, well, hey, since you guys are Four Branches, why don't we go with 4 grains? And we all kind of looked at each other. I'm like, duh, that sounds like a great idea. So we ended up, instead of going with the normal 70-20-10 blend, 3 grain, we brought in the wheat, and he brought in 5% initially, and we tasted that, and we're all looking at each other. Oh, boy, that looks pretty good. Or it tastes really good. And then Steve goes, well, let's bump it up. Let's bump it up to 10%. So when he did the 10%, of course, Dan had to go back over to all these little thimbles and everything he was using to mix that in. And so they mixed it in, And really, it ended up being about, I don't know, Mike, what do you think? About a half an ounce, maybe, if
maybe,
that.
maybe.
So he had mixed this up to basically it was a 65 corn, 15 rye, 10 malted barley, and 10 aged wheat, because the barrels we brought in with Founders Blend is an aged wheated mash bill barrel. So for to blend those about 80 barrels. So they handed it to me, and not knowing it was supposed to be for all four of us, I kind of went blue navy on them and said, "Hey," I was smelling it, and then I just dumped it all in my mouth, and everybody was staring at me, and I'm like, "Well, what are they waiting on? They're waiting on me to come up with some, magical saying that this is great or whatever." And I'm like, "Man, that was really good." And they go, "Well, thanks, because we were all supposed to taste that." So I basically shot all the ammo right there, right? So we were.
Did you have to remix it up then after that so everybody could?
He did. He did. It took him 30 minutes. Where Harold's leaving out is that special barrel we had of some wheat was in another rick house, so he had to go leave and go get more and come back.
That's a blue falcon right there.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel bad, and I don't feel bad now.
What's fun about it's all on camera, and it's just like, I'm telling you, it's great. It's one of our videos. But Harold takes it back, and he takes the whole thing, and you see Steve, you see me, Rick, RJ, everybody's looking at Harold like, "What the hell did you just do?" And Harold's like, "Hey, that's pretty good." And we're like, "Well, can we make some more?"
We won't know. Yeah.
When it comes to the bourbon and mixing that all together, did you guys have similar flavor profiles? Did everyone kind of agree right away on the mash bill?
You know what I'll say? I think, Harold, it hit pretty quick. I mean, like Harold said, he had a little bit the first time we tried it, and we had mixed some Four Grains before prior, and we've been mixing and testing for about probably 8 months. We didn't jump into this without, I'm not taking anything away from other, brands, but sometimes you'll taste something in a barrel, go, "That sounds good," put that in my bottle, put it on a shelf. We wanted a little bit more hands-on. And when we're going to raise a glass in memory of some guys we lost and gals, it's got to be some good stuff. And I've tasted some stuff out there, and it doesn't reach the level of what we're trying to do here. So when Steve did say, "Hey, let's bump that up to closer to 10%," you could definitely taste that difference between that 5% wheat and that 10%. It provides a level of softness and complexity, even with a 5% difference that you didn't get. So we knew we were onto something with that, and we've won two gold medals, a silver and a double gold with that Founders Blend right there. So we knew that not only are the experts responding well to it, but we've done thousands of tastings now, and if we had $5 for every time somebody said that is really smooth bourbon, we'd be retired by now.
Yeah, I feel like we love Four Grains, but I mean, we always do. But I do think that it kind of maybe it feels like a very complete whiskey,
Yeah, very, very approachable.
Yeah,
and lots of females, they'll walk up when you're doing a tasting and all, and they go, "Well, I'm not really," and I go, "Well, hey, I'm not going to push it on you," and they will let me have some. So when they do, I tell them to, "Hey, smell it, open your mouth so you can circulate your palate, and just sip it." And they're like, "Wow." So I could actually drink. I think I could drink a whole glass of this. So very approachable.
Very friendly for 96 proof, especially. It's very friendly.
Yeah.
It's surprising, right? Because you don't get that heavy burn going down, that esophagus burn with this, which is what both women and men. I mean, I cherish my esophagus. I don't like to have it burning every time I drink it either. With that 21 rye, while it's not a high rye, it's not a low rye either. So you definitely get the rye twice. You get it when you first sip it on the back. We call it Kentucky Kiss. And then it kind of lingers for a minute, and then it pops again. It kind of comes back again. We had some guys doing a review on it a couple of years ago, and it was kind of funny, right, Harold? The guys from Watch Hill Proper, and they're like, "You know what? I wish it had a longer finish." And they keep doing a review, and about 5 minutes later, they're like, "You know what? That thing's still there. It has a long finish, longer finish than you think."
Just more subtle.
It is subtle, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we keep saying it's very friendly. Sometimes friendly can be not a good thing, especially for bourbon people. but this has the right amount of complexity to it that it's still, it's still not a no thinker. There's some stuff going on with it that makes it still a really enjoyable drink.
Yeah, it's well rounded, and that's usually what you get with 4 grains. But I feel like that a little bit more wheat is what kind of makes it. I mean, it's well rounded, but it just makes it that friendly, kind of soft, kind of approachable whiskey.
But you have to too, Steve, you have to, for us as a new brand, right? If we've been around for 10, 15 years and we had several different SKUs or different types, you can always go to a high rye because you'll have that group that says, hey, I like that high rye, or a group that wants that 120 proof or whatever it may be. But as a new brand, there's a business decision that has to come in, and we have to have, like Harold said, it's got to be, approachable, not offensive to the masses, if you will, as your first product. And you want people to drink that, like the example he said, and said, wow, I'm not a whiskey or bourbon drinker, but that is really good. And then you can make it in a cocktail, what have you, whatever your choice is. We don't tell somebody how to drink their bourbon, but I do like it neat because I like the way it was originally designed, and you get to take in all the properties of it. But at the same time, we have a quiet professional that has some amaretto in it that's really fantastic, or typical old fashioned. Either way, that rye really comes out in a cocktail more than some others. But anyway, yeah, we had to find something that was going to be more approachable to the masses, and you could go one direction or the other, even a lower proof. But 96 is, we kind of joked about it. We were working our way down from, I think, 101, 102, and we get to 97, 96, 95 because it'll taste different at a different proof level. And trying to get it at that proper proof. At 96, it kind of snapped in, I think, all full of our heads that in the military, you get a 4-day pass, 96 hours.
96 hours, yeah.
And we're like, you know what? I think it's 96. There's a lot of symbolism and symbology in this bottle that you may not even recognize, and that's okay too. We keep it kind of quiet and cool. Even what the 4 means, if you've ever seen a video or heard what each mark of the 4 means, there's a lot of representation and symbolism in it.
It's going good with tobacco, I can tell you that. It's good drinking whiskey. So you guys are kind of all over then. You're spread apart. You're not all in one location, right?
Nope.
No, we're not. RJ's down in Florida most of the time. And then Harold's in Virginia Beach. I'm in Arizona, and Rick's in Nashville. But we get together probably once a month somewhere. We'll all be together. We'll be together actually this next coming week in Kentucky, doing some stuff. And then Harold and I are together in Washington, D.C. doing some stuff. So I was in Florida last week, so we get around.
That's kind of another cool aspect to this whole company, and it kind of shows you that, I mean, going back to the whole military thing, it's just brothers in arms, sticking together, long term.
I'll let you jump in there, Harold, but I think to run into buddies we haven't seen in 20 years. I'm thinking of your buddy when we were, I forget where we're doing a tasting now. You hadn't seen him in like 15, 20 years. I think it was in Kentucky.
Oh, he
caught you off guard.
He was my neighbor. I grew up with him. He played football at my high school. Big guy. He ended up living in Indiana. And so we were out in Kentucky. We were going all over Kentucky doing these tastings at, what was that, Mike? What, Liquor Barns?
Liquor barns, maybe. Yeah. Different.
So
stores.
We went into this liquor barn, and Nick, who he's our sales guy, our national sales guy, he said, "Hey, Harold, there's a guy here waiting on you." And I had no idea, of course, who that was. And it was Jeff. It was Jeff Bowman, my neighbor in Mount Holly, North Carolina, when I grew up. And of course, he came up and we hugged for about 5 minutes. I haven't seen him in so long. But he says, and I said, what are you doing here? And he says, well, hey, I saw you guys on social media. You're going to be here tasting, and all the founders are here. And, my brother called me and said that you were a founder, and I'm here. I'm here to buy some bourbon. So it was great. It's, and, everywhere we go, though, it's kind of the same, right? We had Mike Sean Ryan met us in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And wherever we go, we always have some veteran friends, I think, that come in and see us. And that's the one good thing about the military life. We've spent so much time in the military. I mean, I know people from mostly all the way across the country, and they always come in and support us. So it's been great. We've had a good time. We have a lot of fun with this. It's a lot of hard work, of course, but at the end of the day, we always seem to end up in a restaurant, and we try to choose those restaurants strategically, for them to carry Four Branches Bourbon. And so we go in and we get to see our own little creation up here on the back bar. It's really, it makes you proud to see that. And we ask people, hey, I want a Four Branches Bourbon. So it's kind of neat when you get to order your own juice and then get to share the story, because we're always telling the story. So a lot of fun.
The story is a lot of fun for me. I think for all of us, all three of us, the story behind the whiskey, or why you drink, or what memory the bottle brings up, means a lot to us. So I love the fact that you guys as a company, there's others similar out there, that they have a background that somehow is involved with the military or armed forces. But how do I say this respectfully? It's almost like they throw juice into a bottle and sell the story that this matters. But to your point, you guys spent a long time to figure out what goes in this bottle. It matters.
Both pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah, you put both of those pieces of the puzzle together, and you create a bottle that I feel like anyone can open and pour and share, and they all of a sudden go, I get it. I get the reason why you guys do this.
One to be proud of.
Yeah, it's something to be proud of. I may have never served, but I understand the respect that's involved in this bottle. And I understand the brotherhood that's brought about in this bottle. And I love that, because we've talked about sourcing bourbon, and is it good or is it bad, but is it worth it or not worth it? Because there's normally a price tag that's tied to it. And there's certain companies out there that were like, it's not worth the price tag. And then there's others like you guys that we go, I get it. I get why you guys are doing it. I understand, I appreciate, and I respect that. The price is worth every drop. And I feel like that's a hard thing to come about. It's a hard puzzle to put together for some.
It is, Nick. I mean, when we first started, you got to realize, while we have some really great advisors around us, if you look at barrel prices 3 or 4 years ago, they were ridiculous. And we could make a choice between all kinds of barrels, but the prices were stupid. But when we locked into a barrel, we would get samples, right? And we get samples. We're like, wow, that is phenomenal. And then we find out how much it is. And we're like, wow, that's expensive. We could definitely do it cheaper, right? There's other stuff out there. But it just goes back to what you said. We got to remember why we did this. And it's, if you're gonna raise a glass in honor of somebody who's no longer with us, and we don't want to always, it's not always about that, right? It's about that, my first child. Harold's got 3 kids, Rick's got a couple, RJ's got a couple, but it's a promotion. It's coming back from a trip, alive. It's whatever that is, whatever that special moment, your first house, it's your son's first home run. It's those memories you want to remember. So when you're having that little sip to remember that, it's just got to be good. I mean, if it's not good, it's going to be a bad memory, or you're going to put it in a cocktail. I mean, you kind of lose all focus with it. But no, it's I think that's part of the process we've all four enjoyed, and that's really diving into something that tastes really well. And then if we make a little change here, or we add a little bit of that, or take a little bit of this out, or I think it was our first Founders blend we did. It was a night we blended. We were like, you know what? It just needs a little more age to it. And I think even though it was a 6 to 8 year blend, we put about a 9.5 or 10 year barrel in it just to bring it back up to what we thought it should be. And, when you care about the quality, you care about your message, your product will show for it. And we've always said, somebody may buy your product once because they really love the story. But if it's not good, they're not going to buy you again.
With all that, you guys started with Steve Nally there at Bardstown, and now you're working with Greg Snyder. Is he at Bardstown, or is he? I know he used to be with Chicken Cock, but I didn't know if he moved over to Bardstown, and then that's why you guys are working with him, or how'd you guys make that connection?
That was actually a Bardstown connection. Mark Irwin, the CEO of Bardstown, he made a call to me because Greg was more independent. He left Chicken Cock, was kind of being independent. And we couldn't own Steve Nally, right? Steve was gracious enough to give us his time and his name to our first one, but being respectful of that, we couldn't just say Steve Nally is our master distiller because it's not true. But at the same time, as we've talked about all along, we want to lean in on quality. If whatever that skill is you need, if you don't possess it on a team, you got to go find it. And Greg was available and he was introduced to us. We spent some time with him at the chem room in Bardstown. If you remember that, Harold, all five of us around the table and just spending time with, if you ever met Greg, you think he was a freaking Marine battalion all by himself. He's a big boy. I mean, he's a poster child for the U.S. Marine Corps.
He does. He got a flat top, gray-headed flat top. I mean,
he's
really.
6'4" and about 220 pounds of muscle. But he just fit in, right? 47 years in the business, and he knows. I mean, he was making. I think he started out making. He was a cooperage. He was making barrels in his early years, so he knows. He knows from top to bottom, start to finish, everything about bourbon, the kinds of woods, where this wood comes from, all the different levels of char that we know about now, but just talking about those kinds of things and toasted. And, we have our Liberty Reserve coming out, which is a celebration of our country's 250th anniversary, and it's a double oak. And so it's been double oaking now for about 4.5, 5 months. And Greg tasted about every week and a half, 2 weeks, just to make sure that it doesn't get too much double oaked. So he's calling it. So it's just great having that guy on the team to lean on. And if we got questions, he's always available to help us out.
So how do you guys come up with new renditions? Do you guys keep all the same 4 grain, or is each different bottling something else?
Well, our first LTO, right, limited time offering was Black Ops. So what that was 9-year-old juice that we finished in 4 Caribbean rum barrels. And the Black Ops was tied to one of our brand ambassadors or brand champions, Rick Parado, who was a retired CIA. He was in the CIA and ran some of the terrorist type organizations down south. But Rick, he's got a beautiful story. His book is called Black Ops. So we kind of paired that book, Black Ops, with this LTO Black Ops. And with that one, we have a silver label on it with a black 4. Changed it up, same bottle, same labeling, but just different color, right? And then our second LTO was the Continental. It's a blue and gold label. The Continental was paying honor and respect to our Army, Navy, and Marine Corps birthday this year, 250th birthday. So, and it's 9-year-old juice too. Unbelievable. It's beautiful. And then just like Mike said, we're coming out with the Liberty Reserve, which is the double oak for our country's America's 250th. And then we'll continue this, but it's just like it's like anything else, right? It has to have a purpose. It has to have a meaning to it if we're going to go out of our way to actually roll out an LTO. And I think we've got ideas for the next one, but it just takes time on that because we're a business. We got to focus on our primary SKU. We're looking at doing a lower price point SKU possibly next year. And that's just to get people on board, right? If people can't afford the $79, $89 bottle of Founders Blend, we're going to introduce something a little better, $39 range or whatever, and call it the enlistment or whatever to get people on board the brand. And then they can graduate and go to the Founders Blend. But it's always, we're always trying to keep our finger on the pulse as far as sales goes and making sure, like Mike said earlier, that we put quality juice in the bottles because we want to be the brand that's kind of, we're not a snuffy brand. We don't want to be like a Peter Millar of bourbon, but at one point, we're not going to put bad tasting juice in our bottles. So
Peter will love that, Harold.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that if you watch any kind of military movie, anything involving armed forces, it's always cheap liquor and cheap beer that they're shooting at the bar or drinking at the bar or drinking on base. And I keep thinking back as you guys talk about quality, and the back of my brain, I keep thinking, I love the fact that you guys are changing that perception from just because someone serves doesn't mean that they go for the cheap stuff. There's something behind why they do what they do. And I love the fact that you guys are challenging that perception. I think it does change, I would say, most of the public's view on how you guys handle alcohol, how you guys look at alcohol, how you guys handle whiskey. I love that. I really respect that a lot.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Nick. That is a big part of the ethos of our brand. And you're right. It's we work a lot. We're starting to see our bourbon get adopted and be brought into more of the American Legions and the VFW. And to your point, well, if you have that first conversation with it, they're always going to say, wow, we can't afford that. Because, if they're bringing in a bottle of $40, $50 bottle from the distributor, that means their prices have got to be higher. And if you've ever been to the VFW American Legion, a shot of bourbon is going to be somewhere between $6, $7, maybe $4 or $5. We've got a couple bars here in Arizona. There's such veteran focus. I think she sells it for like $5 or $6, pour. And she may make a little bit on that bottle, but she's doing it because she feels her veterans deserve to have better bourbon. And so to your point, I think that's the message we're trying to get across. But we're seeing more American Legions of VFWs bringing in Four Branches, not only because of the story, but because it's good bourbon and they deserve it. So, we work with, as Harold said, we'll try to keep finding maybe a lower price point. Not the problem. What we're focused on now is making sure that quality is still there. And it may be I hate to say never, right? But we're not big fans of anything less than 4 years. And you can find some good less than 4 years sometimes. We got some stuff aging now that's about 2.5 years. And I swear to God, that stuff tastes like a 5 to 6 year old. I can't wait for that one to come out. It's phenomenal. But, you start looking at 4, 5, 6 year, you get a little more expensive, but we're just trying to make sure that we're able to provide the next level, like Harold said, the next group down, they can be introduced to really good bourbon without having to, break their bank. And we want to be conscious of that.
Without sacrificing your integrity either.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And another stereotype out there on the military is that it's a lot of drinking to forget, a lot of heavy usage to kind of get through some of the things that you guys had to do in your profession. And so with your tagline there, sip to remember, I want to talk a little bit about that and the importance of that to you guys and the brand.
That's really important to it. Harold, if you want to take and run with that one, it means a lot to us. Appreciate that.
Well, I think, like Mike said, we've all brought back people from downrange that was KIA or didn't make it. So we definitely want to, and we understand the suicides, the 22 a day or 17 to 25, the number goes up and down, veterans committing suicide. And that's why we really try to push the messaging of, we don't want you to drink to forget. We want to sip to remember. But that's a hard one, right? Because, one of my best friends, he died that way, right? And lots of times in the SEAL teams, it was kind of, well, does that guy deserve to be on the wall because he committed suicide? Well, absolutely. Absolutely, he deserves to be on the wall because, you hear it all the times in the military. We build our careers on the shoulders of our families, right? So lots of guys, if they got multiple turns in combat, they have all of that pressure on them. And it's very difficult to deal with that, right? So we try to, we can't change the drinking. People are going to drink. And from a business standpoint, we would rather take the high ground and go, look, we want you to sip to remember. Let's don't, drink to forget. And especially if you have a friend, have a swim buddy or a shooting buddy, and let's talk this through. Let's go sit down and have a sip and talk it through. And we always say, hey, if you don't drink, don't start. Right. So that's a part of our ethos of the company. We really want to lean in on that to say, hey, we I don't know, Mike, the total number, 16 to 20 possible nonprofits that we give back to. And we always give 4% of our annual revenue to all of these different, and we break it up and try to make sure that we have a little bit for everybody instead of donating all of our money into one organization. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a part of what we're going to do naturally. We're going to always give back to those organizations that are helping with resources for our veterans. So.
Well, Nick, you talked about those, the serve honorably, drink honorably goes along with that. And you mentioned, you didn't serve in the military, but our opinion is everybody serves. Everybody serves in some capacity. You don't have to be a veteran or a first responder to serve, school teachers and mechanics and, a father, a mother. We all serve in one way or another. So I think to serve honorably, that's what we mean about that. Whatever it is you serve honorably. And that's a double entendre, right? It's the people behind the bar as well as you, in your man's cave at night. If you got somebody that shouldn't be drinking that much, then think about that. But drink honorably is the how. Don't dishonor the memory of those guys that didn't come home. We're okay, right? And even though you brought home some scars and some things you're dealing with, like Harold talked about, we just ask you to take that thought one more step further and don't dishonor their memory by blowing your candle out too early, especially using alcohol to do it. So we do talk about the elephant in the room because we realize you're not taking alcohol out of this world. We try to demonstrate how you can do it and why you should do it. And the sip to remember, like we said, it's not just to remember those kind of tough times, but it's all those great memories too. We all leave this earth some way, right? One way or another, whether you're 1 year old or 101, that's the way life is. So we just want to kind of flip that switch and flip the narrative within our community. This is how and why we want you to drink our bourbon anyway. I can't tell you how to drink other people's spirits, but that goes with us.
We've had our fair share here of different bottles, and we also have a club that this kind of got started out of. And we took 1 year to do sourced bottles. That's all we had was anything sourced. And the question after each bottle was, is it worth the price tag? Is it worth it? And I bring that up because hearing you guys talk even more about the ethos and what you guys want to present with each bottle. For me personally, the price tag is worth that. It's worth, that's not a cheap lesson to pay for, but I think the price tag is worth that lesson to learn and to remember as you have a glass.
That's a good point. I'm just looking at the bottle sitting on my shelf right now, and we have an honor reserve for the Folds of Honor, and we have the Black Ops that Harold mentioned, our double oak. The reason we did double oak is you go back 250 years ago, it was really about the wood that made America. I mean, your cabins, your railroad, it was truly about the wood. So the reason why we lean
USS Constitution.
SS Constitution, yeah, it's all about the wood. That's just kind of where America got started. So we kind of took that story and that concept as we thought about what do we want this next LTO to be, and we leaned into the double oak. And so that's why we wanted to put it back in a new barrel again.
Well, hey, I really want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to talk to us and kind of help spread the word of you guys out to our audience, and hopefully wherever they are, they're going to be able to get a bottle of it from you. Do you guys have anything you want to stay out to everybody? Your socials, any events or anything like that coming up?
No, I think the one thing I would say, if you watch our socials and on our website, we have it. It's a video called Tame the Kraken. It's a film we've invested into, both time and money. I'll be in New York the week after next for a private screening of the film that'll be shown at the World Trade Center. But it's about a father and his son. He's a former British Special Forces gentleman, and he had lost some friends years ago, and he rode the Atlantic Ocean as a way of therapeutic dealing with his PTS. And then when his son was like, I think 11 at the time, he said, "Dad, I'd love to do that with you sometime." So they did that. They rode the Pacific Ocean 48 days. Guys, think about this. 48 days on a little boat, and you have to row unassisted. They didn't see another soul in sight once they left San Francisco until they pulled into Hawaii, 2,500 nautical miles. but they did it to raise awareness for veterans' mental health. And we sponsored the boat, and then we helped sponsor and pay for the film. And that film is an hour long. But when you watch this film and this movie and you see the symbolism between mental health and what it was like for those two guys to be out on the water, at the end of the day, I think that the takeaway is you never quit. You just don't stop. You never quit, no matter what it is in life. And we have some bad days in life. We've all had them, but you wait for the next sunrise. So we're pretty proud of this story, and we hope it does get picked up for distribution. And it's something that's out there within our military community, military bases. And our thoughts are, yeah, we spent quite a bit of money making this film, but if it saves one life, if somebody watches that film and says, damn, 48 days out on the water, I thought my life was rough, I think I can make it, whatever it is I'm going through, and they don't pull that trigger, we'll call it a success. We may know about it, we may not, but that's just kind of who we are, and that's what we're going to put into it. So we would like people to take a minute to watch the film. It's called Tame the Kraken. If you go to fourbranches.com, on our site, you can navigate it and find it. But there'll be more news to come out about that in the media here pretty soon. But yeah, we're excited about that. We're excited that the bourbon was part of that. What was really cool is that boat had 4 bottles that was on board that boat. And those bottles traveled from San Francisco to Hilo, Hawaii, across the ocean. And Harrison and Tim signed those bottles. So we'll find the right auction for those bottles to be auctioned off for his nonprofit, which is called Road to Recovery, something he has in Atlanta, Georgia. He takes out vets and really anybody, help them to understand how they can put that negative energy in rowing, and it's an amazing. Harold and I and Rick and RJ went to Atlanta, Georgia, and sat with Tim and another vet who was dealing with some tough times. And we sat around a fire pit, and we had a little Four Branches bourbon, and an hour later we're laughing, cutting up, and just kind of feeling relaxed, but yet, doing it honorably. And that's also, that scene is in the movie as well. So that's kind of what it's about. It's about a connection, it's brotherhood, sisterhood. It's being there for one another. And as Harold mentioned, we have to do something to stop this 17, 18, 22 a day. It's just, we got to do something about that.
Well, thank you again. And thank you for your service. And thank you for the alcohol and bringing it all to us. And we will put all the socials and all the links and everything in the show notes for you guys. And so thank you again. And hopefully one day we'll have a chance to have a glass all together.
We appreciate that. I'll throw one more carrot after we call it an Easter egg. And I can say this because Jack Carr put it out there with Rick already. So if you're familiar with the Terminal List, the series by Jack Carr, they had Dark Wolf out this year, but later this year, you'll see a little surprise on Terminal List 3.
Season 2. Yep.
Season 2. So it's kind of cool. Okay. And you may see this guy named Chris Pratt having a little sip of Four Branches bourbon. So
that's cool.
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for what you guys do.
Thank you guys. And hey, when we do come into Ohio, that'll be when we come up and we get to smoke a cigar with you guys.
Perfect.
Yes,
come to the man cave and kind of shake hands and sit down and talk.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that'll be awesome.
You guys will be welcome.
Awesome.
We appreciate that. Ohio's a good state for us. We sell online. We ship to 42 states, and Ohio's always like in the top 5. So we appreciate you guys.
We like our bourbon.
We do.
There's nothing wrong with that. We love you guys.
That's right.
Awesome.
All right. You guys have a good night.
Hey, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you want more great content and other perks, be sure to support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. We can be reached on our website, whiskeychaserspod.com, with any ideas for the show. Thanks again.